Welcome to the deep dive. Okay, today we're heading into a place that, well, just feels packed with stories, doesn't it? Amazing nature, deep history, and this global reach.
Absolutely. We're talking about Sylhet in Bangladesh.
Sylhet, yeah. And based on the material you've gathered, it's way more than just a city.
Oh, for sure. It's got this reputation as the spiritual capital. It's known for tea gardens and incredible scenery, but also this really unique link, especially to the UK.
Right. And we've got this pile of sources, articles, videos that we're going to sift through together. The idea is, pull out the key stuff, the surprises, what really makes Sylhet tick.
Exactly. Think of it as us navigating this material just for you, our listener, focusing on what jumps out as most interesting from everything you've brought together.
Okay, then, let's unpack this. First things first. Where is Sylhet geographically?
So it's tucked away in the northeast of Bangladesh, right on the Surma River, and it's a pretty big place. Well, it's a major city, a metropolitan center. The sources say it's the fifth largest in Bangladesh now, population getting close to 1 million in 2024. P administrative spot 2 district, division headquarters, that sort of thing.
Got it.
Yeah.
And you mentioned its identity, tea, nature, spirituality.
Yeah, those seem to be the core pillars coming through the material. The landscapes, obviously, the tea plantations are famous, but the spiritual capital label, that's really significant too.
Even the name Sylhet seems to have layers. I saw a couple of theories mentioned.
There's one linking it back to Sylhet, maybe from the Natha dynasty, possibly a deity. It's a bit ancient and hazy.
And the other one, more local.
Yeah, the sort of folk etymology, a story about a rich guy building a market, a hat, and naming it after his daughter, Shyla.
Shyla's hat becomes Sylhet.
Kind of, yeah. That's legend. It just hints at how long people have been there, even before the main historical events we read about.
Okay, speaking of history, it sounds like Sylhet has seen a lot. Ancient settlements, Hindu rulers, like Guru Govinda.
Exactly. He comes up as a significant figure. But the real, transformative moment described in the sources is the arrival of Islam.
This is Shah Jalal.
Yes, the Sufi Saint Shah Jalal, believed to be from Yemen, arrived with 360 followers. The sources date this around 1303.
And their mission.
Primarily spreading Islam, but also confronting King Guru Govinda, who's often described in the sources as, well, powerful and maybe tyrannical. There was a battle, and Sylhet was effectively liberated, as the sources put it, in 1303.
And that event makes Shah Jalal just hugely important there today.
Absolutely massive. His shrine, the Mazar Sharif, is a major, major pilgrimage site. Thousands visit. And what's really striking, the material points out, is that it's revered by people of all faiths, not just Muslims.
And there are accounts from travelers.
Yeah, the famous Ibn Battuta visited him centuries ago. He wrote about Shah Jalal being incredibly pious, totally uninterested in worldly stuff. Apparently only had a goat or a sheep for milk.
Wow. Just living simply.
And he mentioned the saints' warriors being fiercely loyal too, and there are these symbols still associated with him.
Like the pigeons.
Yeah, the Janali Kobutor, these unique surma-colored pigeons. Legend says they were a gift from another famous saint, Nizamuddin Auliya. And the gazar fish in the shrine's pond, they're all part of the living connection to him.
It's woven into the fabric of the place.
Totally. To the point where one source mentions the Shibanga people, who trace their lineage directly back to Shah Jalal and his companions. It all feeds into why Sylhet's still called the City of 360 Awliyas.
Okay, so after Shah Jalal, power changes hands again.
Right. Sylhet falls under the Bengal Sultanate, then later the Mughal Empire. It became a pretty important Mughal outpost, especially from the 17th century, east of Dhaka.
Then the British arrive.
18th century, East India Company. And here's an interesting bit from the material. Sylhet becomes this key source for Lascars.
Lascars.
Yeah, South Asian sailors on British ships. And the sources suggest this might link back to an older, pre-existing seafaring or trading tradition among Sylhetists themselves.
Interesting. So maybe already looking outwards, beyond the region.
Possibly. Gives you a different perspective. Although, one British official, Robert Lindsay, apparently described it as just a small bazaar back then. Very different image.
So it grew a lot later.
Well, a massive earthquake in 1897 apparently flattened much of the old town. So it was rebuilt, more modern European style. And the tea industry, that really boomed under the British. They built infrastructure, too, like the Keene Bridge in 36.
Okay, fast forward to 1947, partition. This sounds like a crucial moment for Sylhet.
Absolutely critical. Because Sylhet wasn't automatically going to East Bengal, Pakistan. It was part of Assam province, which was majority Hindu.
So how did it end up in Bangladesh?
It all came down to a vote, a referendum in 1947. The sources describe it as pretty tense.
What is the result?
It was 56% voting to join East Bengal, 44% to stay with Assam, India. So reasonably close. But even then, it wasn't straightforward. The border line, the Radcliffe line, ended up cutting off some parts of Sylhet, about 3.5 thanuses or sub-districts, like Kimji, which went to India after all.
So it really could have gone either way, a completely different path for the region.
Exactly. It highlights how contingent these borders were. Much later, in 1995, it got upgraded to Bangladesh's 6th Divisional Headquarters.
That whole history switching between Assam, Bengal, the referendum must have cemented a really unique regional feeling. Let's talk about the people, the Sylhetis, and their language.
Right. The sources identify them as an Indo-Aryan ethnocultural group. And the language, Sylheti, is a big part of that identity. Now, there's this whole debate.
Language or dialect.
Exactly. It's its own distinct language, or a dialect of Bengali. The sources highlight that it has unique features, sounds, words that can make it genuinely hard for standard Bengali speakers to understand.
So that creates a sense of difference.
It definitely contributes. But, and this is important, the sources stress that many Sylhetis feel both Sylheti and Bengali. It's not necessarily either. That complex history under the British, bouncing between Assam and Bengal, likely reinforced this distinct regional layer alongside the broader Bengali identity.
And the culture goes beyond just the spoken language, right? Unique folklore.
Oh, yeah. A real mix. Hindu roots, Sufi influences, even traces of Turco-Persian stuff in the folklore.
And the writing system, Sylheti Nagari.
That's fascinating. A separate script, apparently simpler than Bengali, which led to its own literary tradition, especially popular in rural areas. The courses mention it almost died out after the 1971 war.
Really?
Yeah, but there are efforts now, partly driven by the diaspora actually, to revive it, using it as a clear marker of that distinct Sylheti identity.
But they also contributed massively to Bengali literature itself.
Absolutely. There's even a claim mentioned that the very first translation of the Mahabharata into Bengali came from Sylhet. And you have these giant figures of Bengali folk music and poetry, like Hassan Raja and Shah Abdul Karim, who are from Sylhet. Their songs are known everywhere.
So a rich literary scene across languages.
Sanskrit, Persian too, one town, Taraf, was apparently a center for Persian studies because of missionaries. Even Urdu had some presence among the aristocracy. The sources list quite a few notable names from Sylhet in arts, literature, even sports.
Like who?
Actor Salman Shah, singer Runa Layla, and Hamza Chowdhury, the footballer playing in the Premier League, just shows the breadth of contribution.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit from history and culture to the landscape. Because Sylhet is famous for its natural beauty.
Oh, absolutely. The geography itself is dramatic. Lots of hills, but also these huge wetland basins. They call them beels or hers.
And very wet, I assume. Tropical climate.
Yep, tropical monsoon. Means lots of rain for a good part of the year. Really shapes the environment.
The sources highlighted some specific spots, right? Especially the wetlands.
They did. Tangwar Har is one. It's enormous, the second largest freshwater wetland in Bangladesh, apparently. It's like a whole system of smaller hars connected.
What's it like?
In monsoon, it's described as this vast, calm water body, like a waveless sea. Then in winter, the water drops and it becomes this huge open field, fed by streams coming down from the Meghalaya hills in India. The water can be incredibly clear.
Best time to visit.
Depends what you want, I guess. Rainy season for the full water experience, maybe stay on a boat. Winter for amazing bird watching.
And the other wetland mentioned, Ratargul.
Ratargul Swamp Forest. This one sounds really special. It's a freshwater swamp forest, which is apparently quite rare globally.
How so?
Most big swamp forests, like parts of the Amazon, are saltwater or brackish. Ratargul is freshwater. So during the monsoon, you see these trees, like korok and bot trees, just growing right out of the water. It must be an incredible sight.
Wow. Okay, so you have these huge wetlands. What about rivers, waterfalls coming from the hills?
That's the other major feature. Lots of places right on the border with India's Meghalaya state where rivers cascade down. Jaflong is maybe the most famous.
What's Jaflong known for?
They call it the daughter of nature. It's at the foot of the Kasia Jaintia Hills. You've got the Payaran River, these distinctive piles of stones, waterfalls coming down from Daki Hill just across the border. Apparently beautiful in winter, but really dramatic in monsoon.
And Bichanakandi, that was called tourism heaven.
Yeah, that sounds stunning too. A riverbed full of stones, cold water flowing over them from the hills. You can see the hills meeting right at the border point. The sources say monsoon is best, when clouds get stuck on the hills.
Similar spots elsewhere.
Vulgan Shatapathor is another one. Shatapathor means white stones. Same idea. Border area, clear water from the Dolai River, white stones. And Lalakal is famous for its incredibly clear, bluish river water. You can take boat trips through hills and tea gardens.
Ah, yes, the tea gardens.
Yeah.
Can't forget those. Definitely not. Shrimangal area is world-renowned for tea. Miles and miles of rolling green hills covered in tea estates. There's even a sculpture there. Chakanya.
And more wetlands nearby.
Yeah, Heilhor and Baikabil are near Shrimangal, important spots for fish and especially for migratory birds during winter.
Plus a national park.
Right, Lawachar National Park. It's a protected reserve forest, known for biodiversity, including, get this, Hulak gibbons.
Gibbons. Really?
Yeah. Apparently, Bangladesh is one of only 4 countries where you can find them wild. The park was even used as a filming location for Around the World in 80 Days. And there are still traditional Kasia villages inside the park boundaries.
It sounds like you need some local transport to get around all these places.
For sure. Sylhet City is the hub, then it's CNGs, auto rickshaws, or boats, depending on where you're heading, part of the adventure, I suppose.
Okay, let's tie this all together now. We've got history, spirituality, amazing nature. How does this connect to the modern Sylheti diaspora? This is where it gets really interesting. Connecting the past to the present. Remember the Lascars? That history of seafaring.
Yeah.
Well, the sources suggest that might have played a role in why Sylhetis were among the first South Asians to seek opportunities abroad, especially after World War II when Britain needed labor. They had maybe an existing connection to ports like Calcutta and this tradition of moving for trade or work.
And that led to a huge number of people leaving.
Massive. The global Sylheti diaspora is estimated at around 1 million people. And while there are communities in the US, Canada, elsewhere, the concentration is overwhelmingly in the UK.
How big in the UK?
One source from 2008 suggested maybe 95% of the diaspora was in the UK then. The 2021 UK census counted over 60,000 Bangladeshis, and a huge portion of them have Sylheti roots.
And they've had a massive impact back in Sylhet itself.
Absolutely huge. Primarily through remittances, the money sent back home. It's a major driver of the local economy.
In what ways?
The sources give concrete examples, funding the building of mosques, paying for village water pumps, improving roads. It filters down to the local level. There's even that anecdote about the fish market.
Ah, the Londony price.
Exactly. Prices for some desirable fish going up because people know buyers have access to money from relatives in the UK shows the direct economic effect.
And you can actually see the diaspora's influence in the city's development.
Yeah, definitely. Things like modern hotels, like the Roseview mentioned in one source, are partly built or upgraded to cater to the standards expected by diaspora members visiting home. It reflects the progress British Bangladeshis have made and how that shapes development back in Sylhet.
And the food scene reflects this too, a mix of old and new.
Totally. You've got all the traditional Sylheti food biryani, amazing fish curries, beef or shakura dishes, and this really vibrant Paranian culture. I saw fire pari mentioned.
Fire pie.
Yeah. But alongside that, you have loads of pizza places, fried chicken, gourmet burgers. It's the taste that the diaspora brings back with them, blending with the local cuisine.
One of the videos had a really personal take on the diaspora experience.
It did. The speaker was reflecting on, his father's generation, the pioneers who went to the UK, talking about the difficulties they faced, like culture shock, racism. It wasn't easy.
And he had a message for the younger generation.
Yeah, basically a call to action, encouraging British Bangladeshis and others in the West with Sylheti roots to not lose that connection, to go back, share skills, invest, support the development of their ancestral home.
The source also touched on a challenge the diaspora sometimes faces regarding identity.
Right. It mentioned that British Bangladeshis sometimes face questions about, their loyalty to Britain, their birth country. The source specifically mentioned this coming from groups described as Islamophobes and right-wingers. We're just relaying that perspective here as presented in the material, showing another complex dimension to their experience.
So, looking back at everything we've covered, it's this incredible journey. Ancient history, spiritual awakenings, empires rising and falling, stunning nature, and then this massive modern story of people moving across the world and reshaping their homeland from afar.
It really pulls together all these threads, doesn't it? History, geography, culture, migration. They're all tangled up together to create what Sylhet is today. It's not just one thing. What really strikes me is how much Sylhet's story seems to revolve around borders. The literal international border cutting through places like Jaflong, the historical borders between kingdoms, the shifting provincial lines under the British, and even the sort of cultural borders navigated by the diaspora. How do all those different kinds of borders shape a place and its people? And how do Sylhetists navigate them, both there and, out in the world?
That's a really interesting point. Makes you think about how places aren't static. They're constantly defined and redefined by these lines and movements. So as you listen to this, what part of Sylhet's story grabbed you the most? Was it the deep dive into history and spirituality, the incredible natural beauty, or this fascinating modern story of the global diaspora and its impact?
It feels like digging into a place like Sylhet, using these sources, really gives you a window into how local culture and identity persist and adapt in our incredibly connected yet bordered world.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.